Okay, hey everybody. This is Grace. Today I am thinking about something that happened to me so long ago that I cannot remember what decade it was in. Oh man, when you get to be a certain age, you start remembering things as in decades ago. And now I'm at that where I just can't remember. But it was a weird thing. It was basically, I remember being young, and I got this job, and I can't even remember the job. It wasn't for long. I was supposed to be permanent, but something happened. I don't even remember what it was, and I stopped working there. Don't remember what the job was. I know it was in something like an office, and it was just me and this other woman my age. We both started working there at the same time. And we both started working, and it was like, I don't know, the office was not big. It wasn't small either, and it was just us, and we had, I don't remember. We looked out and we could see, I don't remember it. And then we could just get to it. The first thing that happened, one of the first things that I remember now, is meeting her. She seemed like an okay person. We had, same age. So, it'd been a while. I was young, but it'd been a while since I met somebody in my age group. She was married, I was married. I don't know if she'd had any kids yet or not, and I hadn't, and so we were young. And, anyway, one day, she was just a normal person, just, nothing special. Nothing different, until one day she just started acting really talking a lot and really hyperactive and everything. Like, she was hyperactive and just saying strange things, or I don't remember if it was strange things or what it was, but I remember telling her, I looked around and said, I was kind of laughing, but and I just thought she was kind of like in a good mood, and she was joking around, because she was in such a good mood. And we had gotten to know one another by then, a bit, and worked 5 days, I think 5 days a week with one another, and only two people there in that part. So we had a lot of time to talk to one another and all this kind of stuff. And I looked at her when she was acting so, at some point I said, you keep that up. She was acting so happy and, just all this. And she just, it kind of went over the top. And I said, you keep that up, they're going to come and get you in those, how's the expression? In those little white suits, the ones they wrap around you and tie in the back, your arms in the back. And anyway, I don't remember the way it's expressed, but she says, well, they already have. And I just looked at her and said, what? And she told me that when she was a teenager, she had been picked up and put in a psych ward, those little white suits. And she was put in there for bipolar disorder. She said her dad was bipolar, and she was. And, well, the long and short is, she just didn't like taking her medicine. She liked the highs. She liked that. And she just didn't, care for the medicine. I don't know if that's been, there are changes in all that medicine and all that, but, back then I heard so much about people, they just didn't like getting off their medicine. They liked the high on the mania and the, all that kind of stuff was so like a stereotype. Anyway, I don't know what happened. We no longer worked together, but it still was that we had become friends. And, I keep saying, but over the years, I don't remember how many years, like I'm saying, I seriously don't remember how long, what decade, when, whatever. But, she became quite odd. Her husband, I think she she miscarried triplets. Then she had a couple of children later, not twins, but then her husband left her for his secretary, so stereotypical. And he had done the whole thing. It was around the time that when cell phones just came out, and he would do the whole thing of going outside to talk on the cell phone. And I kept saying, why does he do, I'd tell her, I said, why do you think he does that? And I said, that's just suspicious. We were that type. And as we'd gotten to know one another, years had passed and all, and I had moved around a lot, so we were never really much around one another. It was just over the telephone. And at some point, I just flat out said, do you think maybe he's cheating on you? Because he had lost a bunch of weight, and he had been a big man, then he lost a bunch of weight. And she said, no, he's not, cheating on me. He's not the type. And so, I don't know. And I know that's hard. I mean, that's not an easy thing to tell somebody, to even ask. You think he's cheating on you? And I thought he was cheating on her. Well, he was. And he left her with a negative bank balance and the two boys, her two kids, young kids. They weren't even teenagers, they were just kids. And a mortgage. And she went through a lot. I mean, I had to teach her that she could go and get some assistance. She didn't know that. And she went and got some assistance, so they could eat and all that. I don't know what all else. But this had gone over, I'm thinking, in the 80s and the 90s. And but at some point she started turning weird. I mean, seriously weird. Stalkerish. And I guess she was so lonely. Whatever it was, she wasn't on her medications. But at some point I talked to this woman, and I think when this started happening, and I could be wrong, I think I was still, it was when I was still young, real young, and naive, and I was a student, but I had not reached the level where I was studying personality disorders, like a narcissistic personality disorder, borderline personality disorder, histrionic personality disorder, and antisocial personality disorder. Wasn't at that level yet. And I knew that she was bipolar. That's all that she had told me, that she was bipolar. And I didn't know, that was before I knew anything like there was more than one type, or any of that stuff. I never really got into studying that much. I did, but now it's kind of like it's way back then that I studied it. So, but anyway, there was this woman. It was in a group of computer people. I was one of those original geeks, and the geek was a dirty 4-letter word back then. It was we were starting up everything. Really, we were some of the people who were the pioneer women and pioneer men in this whole thing of social media and computers all around. Just really, we're a bunch of geeks. And there was, they'd have get-together. People would go out, to have get-togethers at restaurants, stuff like that. We'd go have picnics, barbecues, parties, you name it, or just go out to eat with somebody. And there was a woman I went out to. She was older, a little bit older, and I went out. She wanted to discuss some things, and one of the things I told her, I guess she was studying also or something. I don't know. I don't remember, so long ago. And I told her about that woman, the woman with bipolar disorder. And I told her how she was becoming so creepy. So I'm not sure. I could be messing up the whole. It might have been just in the 1980s. Oh, it had to be like maybe early 1990s. I don't remember. But I just told her how she was becoming so creepy and some of the things she was doing. And she said, well, you know, she could also have a personality disorder on top of it all, on top of being bipolar. And for some reason, I had never heard that. Like I said, it was before I started studying that, so I don't know. Now that's messing up the years from when I went from undergraduate to graduate school, so wow. I might as well just say back then. So, you know, hearing something she could have, you know, comorbid with a personality disorder, and yeah, I mean, it made sense. So, you know, it was like blowing my mind. And now that I'm thinking about it, I can kind of feel that again, blowing my mind, because I didn't know much about personality disorders. And and some of the things she did, like I was coming back home from university, and I think Adam was maybe in Florida, wherever he was off working somewhere else in another state, and we were in Texas. Could have been California. And I was driving home from university to my apartment. I think he was in California, yeah. Okay, and I was driving down this road that went through the city where she lived. It was a small city, but it was kind of well known. And since I had to drive through there and the grocery stores were beyond my apartment, I stopped there and to get some groceries. And when I did, she was standing at this not the older woman, but the one I had worked with bipolar disorder. She was standing outside the front door of this grocery store. What are the odds, you know? And when I was going in, and I saw her standing there with this other woman, and they were talking. That other woman looked like she was scared to death. Honestly, like she was so terrified of the woman I had worked with bipolar disorder. And I walked up, and she was all surprised, you know, and I said, wow, you know, I'm just here to get some groceries, and here you are. And this woman, she took that as a chance to get the heck out of Dodge. I could tell she was totally freaked out. And it turned out that she said that was one of her new friends, and I don't remember a story, like maybe she worked with her or something, you know. And I don't think so. I think the woman was really seriously trying to get away from her. And then around that time, she became so stalkerish. And back then, we didn't have, well, I guess that at that point was when I did not have a cell phone. I don't remember, because I remember I had to block her. She would call me from pay phones. She one time had her little boys in a car, and because I would block her number, every number she called me from, because she was becoming so stalkerish. And she chased me down this really big main road in Dallas, in the mid cities and all. She chased me down with her boys in their car or whatever she was driving. And I pulled into a Dairy Queen. She pulled in after me, yelling at me, "What are you doing? Why aren't you answering my phone?" and stuff like that. I had to get Adam. I think he was in California. I'm not one to rely on somebody else, but I remember calling Adam and saying, "Please do something about this. She won't listen to me." And so he called her and told her she better leave me the bleep alone. I don't really know what he said, but she left me alone after that. But I had been blocking, not cell phones, but pay phones. Did I say pay phones? She'd go at every pay phone she could find, and back then you could find them, and call me from them, because I wouldn't answer her calls. So she was driving me nuts. It was so freaky. It was just like being, you know, constantly afraid that somebody was going to come and ruin your day, you know. So call, ruin your day, call, call, call. She would call several times, just keep calling all night. And yeah. Okay. But anyway, she, finally I got away from her, and, with all that, finally, and that was it. And I have said this before, that I really had gotten to the point, because when I was born and raised into seeing so many women act, so many people, they acted so much, like histrionic, the behaviors, characteristics, traits in histrionic personality disorder. Some would say narcissistic, whatever. They just weren't that great. And at some point, when I was young, I've developed after this woman especially, I developed a, attitude that friendship brought on too many responsibilities for me. It was always, I cannot remember meeting anybody, whether, when you meet people, be at work, and that, was going to be somebody where it was some kind of equal relationship, equal friendship. It was going to be all about them. They talk about themselves. Look at me, and then that's it. And I'm just going to be there to listen to all their BS. They're supposed, their lives are so important. That was the story of my life. It has been. I'm 62. And I think it's a waste of time for me. It had become a waste of time. I did try other ways, like going through churches, go to different churches. And the very first one I went to was here in this, just to, make friends, this kind of thing, be in some group, a women's group or something, Bible studies, this kind of thing. And the first thing happened, when one woman saw me come in, and I was new, and she stopped and she said, "Are you from here?" Just real sarcastic, and it was like, oh my goodness. I said, "Yes, I am." She said, "Well, good." And she walked off, and I'm like, I don't want to be around that type. If that's my introduction in this church, I never went back. Well, actually, I did one time, and there was a group for other people, and it was just as bad. It was creepy. I went to another church, and it was creepy. And I'm like, what is this? These creepy church stuff? One of them, the other one, a guy followed me around, my age, followed me around the place, and I was just checking it out and all, and but anyway, dude, this is on my mind for a reason. Yeah. And it's occurred to me before, right now, and I guess I just kind of forgot about it. I have my own life. The stuff that I talk about on here is usually not a big part of my life. So, yeah. When I talk about, the people that I don't, when I see online, and, I mentioned that I use my channels for venting, pressure release valve of stuff that I see that I don't like. And so it's going to be kind of negative, but I'm a very in-person, cheerful person, and I've always learned never let it build up. And never keep it, for me. I'm not saying for anybody else, because some people, that might be the last thing they should do. So I don't believe in building it up inside, myself. So I talk about it on video. It's my form of journaling. And so that's what I do. These are often, lately, well, I'd say, like usually a period during each year when it seems like this is the season for those grifters, the con artists, online scammers. They're the ones that have audiences. They talk whatever, and they get money off their audiences, not necessarily their subscribers, their audience, but their audience. And it's so scripted how they do it, often they're e-beggars. They come up with some reason. Oh, my mom needs this. My mom needs a furnace. She's going to freeze this winter. Her furnace broke and she needs it. And then the next thing you do is see them with new hairdo, with their nails done. And they say, well, I've just been under stress. I needed that. You know, this kind of thing. They don't have money for groceries. And then you see them taking their kids out, you know, for pizzas or something. Or, you know, using it on something that was other than like groceries. And then lately it's been the ones that are doing the food pantries. I keep saying banks, but it's pantries. I read what's the difference in food pantries, and they don't need it. They just use it so they can they can save their money from buying groceries. And they're saving their money for things like tattoos and vacations. These kinds of things. And there is one person, I've mentioned that I have never, ever, I don't think, experienced this in my life. And it may be just, I just said this, I think I did a video on it yesterday, and or the day before. And it could just simply be, I hadn't given enough thought. But I don't find anything redeemable about her. Would redeemable be the word? I just find myself being disgusted by her. Like she's a very vile person. And there's nothing really I would find, you know, to be somebody I would even want to be around. And, I mean, I know I'm not going to be around any of these people. So, but you know, the type that you know, creepy. Whether it's male or female, it's just creepy. And she is that. But are you connecting the dots now if you lasted this long? The thing is, I think she may be bipolar. And that was something that occurred to me. I don't diagnose, so, but it hit me that it reminded me of that woman. And there were several people during that era. That one of them, it was a man, and you know, I knew him pretty well, and he hinted at it one time that he had bipolar. Then he said that he was diagnosed. Then he turned around and said, "No, I wasn't." And I've seen that to be fairly common, and I don't think he was the only one. And that and people diagnosed with borderline personality disorder. They'll say that they are, and then they'll turn around and deny it. That's what I have seen. I'm not saying anybody else would see it, but that's what I have seen in other people. So, but this woman reminds me of the other woman, that woman that I knew when I was young, and the one bipolar, and the other person, and the other woman said maybe she has a personality disorder. I could see her as being like bipolar and borderline, you know. And because there's sometimes she had, it was, you remember that bitter beer face? There was some some commercial that had it on there, bitter beer face. Well, she would have that on her face sometimes. You know, before she started becoming Stalker, she would just have that face, you know, look like that. And she was so irritating to be around. But this was before I realized she's just not somebody I want to be around. But like I said, I used to move a lot to other states, and I was hardly, it was hardly ever we were around one another. But when we were, it's like, oof, I don't want to be around her. So this woman, reminds me of her. You see what I'm saying? Okay. Anyway, I think that pretty much just says it all. It's probably pretty long. But that's probably why I find, and now I feel like, I'm seeing more of it. Like I said, she triggers me to my experience with that other woman, And the other woman, but just for the record, she wasn't interested in, I would never been interested in women as far as, any kind of relationship other than friendship. And she never did either, as far as I know. But it was just, I think, a combination of disorders, possibly. And like I said, I don't diagnose, so, but she was bipolar. But the other, like a personality disorder, she just wasn't. She was all of a sudden get that bitter face and the anger and have one of her. She hated everybody and mood swings. Well, that could be more than that. So anyway, I'm gonna wrap this up. I'll talk to you on another video. Bye.